Okay, dear viewers, mind groomers, reality talk और औरंगजेब सोरवर्दी एक दफा फिर आपके सामने. This time we have a much important topic to discuss, and that's why we have a very important guest also, a very seasoned consultant and professional from UK, Neville. First of all, we welcome you, we honor you, we respect you, and we are so delighted to have you accept our very warm welcome, dear Neville.
Thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum, everybody, and thank you for inviting me onto this show. I look forward to however long this is going to be, so we have a bit of fun, we share experiences, and if anyone wants to ask a question, please feel free. You know, we may not have the answer, but more than happy to try and answer your questions.
That's great. Let's go. That's great. It has set the tone of the program. Your refreshing, energizing personality is there. Topic is very energetic, building high performance teams. So first of all, I would request you to please explain a bit of your career assignments and your recent projects, so that thousands of our viewers come to know that besides having a very attractive personality, what else do you have?
I'm not too sure about the attractiveness, but my wife thinks so. But let's look at my history, if you like. A lot of people will know me as a consultant, as a performance specialist, as running an organization that gets results from teams, creating them as high performance teams. They'll also know me as making a difference with young people. I spend a lot of time these days in Your Passport to Grow, which is helping young people really understand that a degree is great, but actually your CV is made up of at least 50% of other things. We call it leadership. You would call it employability skills. I'm sure we'll get into a bit of that today. But my background starts with a degree in maths and a degree in economics back in 1980. And then I joined a construction company, a cement company. I qualified as an accountant in the early 80s. Then I joined the oil industry, and I never looked back. So I've been a project manager, if you like, probably from the day I joined the oil industry to the day I turned the lights off in a particular company and decided to say, I've had enough of corporate life now, I need a break, at the tender age of about 42, which was nearly 19 years ago now. Yeah, so I sort of semi-retired at 42, and have been having a lot of fun since, but clearly not as much fun as you are with that background. It's a fantastic background there. Yes. My background is I've been pushed into the kitchen this morning because everyone's watching TV in the study. So so that's a little bit about my background, but fundamentally, I mean, we're talking about high performance teams here. And what we're really talking about is working with other people. Never more importantly has it been the case that we need to work with other people. This COVID arena has taken us into beautiful and interesting locations through Zoom and StreamYard and whatever online program you've got. But fundamentally, we're not away from our team. And the subject today is really important because it says across the bottom here, it's an artistic effort. It takes a lot of effort to build a team and then create a high performance team. So let's get into that. You know, you ask away, you're the interviewer.
Okay, during my consultancy experiences, I came to know various organizations. In every organization, there are departments working, and people are somehow working in groups also. I would like to know in the beginning of this wonderful program, your experiences, because people work in groups, but they do not understand the importance of building a team. So what are your experiences and your take on this?
Well, I have to say that I'm probably one of the luckiest people on earth. I joined an industry which everyone knows, oil and gas. Everyone has an opinion of what oil and gas is about. But interestingly enough, until you get into that industry, you don't appreciate the term joint venture. You don't really appreciate the term collaboration. Now, let me explain that, because everyone thinks that the oil industry are really profit motivated, individual companies, profit motivated. They beat everybody up because they've got political and monetary clout in the world. And they really make the planet a bad place because no one likes this particular energy form that we have today. What they don't realize is, without collaboration and joint ventures, we wouldn't have petrol. We wouldn't have gasoline. We wouldn't have diesel. We wouldn't have air fuel. We wouldn't have plastic bags today. And I know all of these things perhaps are not really what we want. We prefer the green energy, use the wind power, use the sun power, use the ocean's power. But we are where we are. But all I can say is being very lucky in this collaborative arena. So let me explain a bit more about that collaborative arena. These oil companies were all independent. They were out for their shareholders. They were out to make money and be the best they could be. But they recognized that to make a profit and sustain their oil industry presence, they needed to diversify. They needed to spread the risk. So oil is extremely difficult and extremely expensive commodity to drill for. Only 1 in 12 wells are successful on a global basis. So that means you drill, if you're really unlucky and you drill 11 wells in succession and they're all dry, you will not make money out of any of those wells. So it's only the 12th well that potentially is going to contribute to your future, going to be profitable. There's a productivity arena that comes from it. So consequently, you spread your risk. And by spreading the risk, you work with lots of different companies around the world. And if you're working with lots of different companies around the world, it means you're working with lots of different people. And this is the most interesting part of it, because although it's a heavily capitalized arena, it's a very expensive arena to get into, you still have to work with people. Okay. And they're not in your organization typically. They're in other organizations with different rules, different requirements, different shareholders, different teams, different relative values about working with particular assets around the world. It ends up being quite a complicated mashup, really, but only people in the oil industry realize how important this joint venture, this collaborative nature, this team working, team building arena is. It shocked me, frankly, that when I came out of the oil industry, that it was the only one in the world that worked. Now, that may be a surprise to lots of people, but frankly, it is. It works because it has to work. The purpose drives you and makes it work. So, that's my background. I've been in some incredibly successful teams, which have been put together, not because I put them together, it's because someone else nominated someone to be in that team.
That's so wonderful to hear you. And now I think the question arises that anybody who has understood the importance of working with teams and creating teams, kindly tell us, out of your sheer experience, what are the characteristics of a high performance team, so that we can build this program further asking you questions. So what are the characteristics which you saw and which, in your opinion, should be there in high performance teams?
It's a fantastic question. And do you know what? It's really easy to answer. Because again, with my background, we had clarity of purpose. Everything we did in a joint venture arena, in a collaborative arena where lots of companies were thrown together because they were after a specific asset in a specific part of the world, perhaps drilling on the top of that mountain behind you. That was our sole purpose, and we came together with that purpose. And that to me is the fundamental ingredient of making a high performance team, but equally of making any team perform. And if you don't have that ingredient, frankly, you need to go back to square one and get it. Because otherwise, if you don't have that clarity of purpose at the center, as you start to do things outside of the center, it moves further and further away from the purpose. And then you get conflict within teams, and we know, that's prevalent all the way around the world. Trust disintegrates. The communication levels get to be very tense. There's no collaboration, and people don't learn and adapt.
That's really great to know. We will talk to you in detail about communication and culture and conflict resolution. But here, the time comes once I must ask you that you have highlighted a very, very important foundation of building high performance teams. But I also saw in my professional career, and you are such a wonderful team player you have been. Uh, what role do the objective setting of teams play in making them high performers? Because I've seen many good teams fail due to unrealistic objectives or vague objectives or over optimistic objectives. What is your take on this?
You're absolutely right. And I suppose it sort of comes back to what I've just said, that clarity of purpose. I use the analogy of a bowling ball. So, I mean, you're in Pakistan. Pakistan loves cricket. Imagine playing cricket. Yeah. Imagine playing cricket with a big ball like this that's fluffy, not perfectly round. And actually, when the wind blows, it blows it all over the place. So imagine it could be a balloon with spikes all over it, That there's no clarity of purpose in that. To play cricket, you need a ball, about this size of ball, so you can spin it and, give a googly, So
you are a great leg spinner, I seems.
Oh, well, you saw the hand. You saw the hand.
Great leg spinning.
There you go. You see, old habits die hard. But the point is, when you've got that clarity, it's a bit like a cricket bat. We know what a cricket bat looks like. But imagine a team that's working with a cricket bat, which is 3 times the size that it needs to be, hasn't got a handle, and there's no back and front. So that really means if you can't have the clarity of purpose, you can't put clear objectives, or as they say, smart objectives, and assign responsibilities and job roles and create trust. So it really does start at that core element. It's the bowling ball, cricket ball. Imagine that cricket ball that's got a perfect seam, perfect sides, and when you first start to use it, it's beautifully red and it shines in the sunlight. That's clarity of purpose.
What an explanation you have done. You have created such a wonderful scene. Now we come over that after clarity of purpose and building objectives and assigning tasks, what should be the selection criteria of a high performance teams? Should anybody be included, or anybody having any particular characteristic should be included, or there has to be a specific criteria for selection in the high performance teams?
It's a really interesting question, but I'm going to pass it back to you. Okay.
Okay.
What opportunity have you really had to pick your team?
What opportunities?
What opportunities? I mean, has it been your experience in the past that you've been given a team? Or
yeah. I selected many teams. Okay.
Have you had an opportunity to really hand pick your team?
I think 50% cases I had the opportunity to hand pick, and for that I was so lucky to develop my own criteria, and then I did that. But in 50% of the cases, I'm telling you, hey, wild guess, in 50% of the cases I didn't have that liberty to pick and choose, so I had to accept the choosers of others. So that was really tough for me to get them into my frame of mind and my way of thinking. It was tough.
Well, there you go. You see, you've raised the issue already. I mean, the likelihood is if you're working in an organization currently, you don't have that luxury to pick your team. Your team
Yeah.
is given to you. You're working in a team. So let's talk about if you do have that luxury. Well, we know what basic skills we want from a team, from a good performer. We want them to be, and I'm going to use the letter C right the way through this because you don't need to use any other letter. And it's nice using the letter C because you can think of letters, words that begin with C. So you want someone who's confident. You want someone who's committed. You want someone who's consistent, who's got clarity, not just clarity in what they say, but how they say it. You need someone that's in control, that's calm, collected, contributes to the organization.
Wonderful.
They know how to concentrate. I mean, and I haven't moved past the letter C here, you know. So this is where life becomes really easy. Just write down, you know, in the cold light of day, write down the team player that you would pick if you had an opportunity using the letter C. And you could come with other things, you know, courageous, comfortable, clean, critical friend. There's loads of C terms that you can get behind. And then, of course, you need to ask the question, is that me? Am I confident? Am I committed? Am I consistent? Do I have clarity? Do I give clarity? Am I always in control? Am I calm? You know, and these are the qualities, not just of a team player, but of a leader. Now, so we're not talking about really difficult things here.
So wonderful.
But the issue that I always have is we've never been taught them. Unless we've gone on a specific course, we've never been taught them. And we've watched all these wonderful, you know, talks on the web. You know, TED Talks do hundreds of thousands of webinars around the world.
Yeah.
5 or 10 minutes, you know, it's not a long time out of your life. But the thing is, they're not you. You've listened to something absolutely fantastic. And people, if you're listening to this today, please don't just say, oh, that was a really good interview, or I didn't like that at all. Do something with one thing we've said today. And then
great.
Actually you'll grow. So if we can, you know, we go back and, you know, there are three specific areas we look like when we're talking about any team development. One is communication. Another one is emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And the other one is strategic thinker. And everyone on that team need to have all of these things. And if you notice, all of these, we can understand what each of them mean by talking about how they unfold. So communication, if we start to talk about communication, it's a bit like talking about the weather. The weather's a construct, you know. You've got beautiful weather. I can see it. And I can also now explain what the weather is there. It's beautiful sunlight. You're in the shade. Looks like you're nice and cool and relaxed. There's a little breeze. Doesn't look that humid because you are relaxed,
a superb cricket commentator. Let me tell you, superb cricket commentator.
Well, the thing about cricket is, as you know, there can be a long time in between balls. So you've got to be able to pick out other things that are happening. But that's a good leader too. You know, sometimes there's a long gap between meetings. You need to listen for the silence, work with the silence, collaborate with the team, encourage people to step forward and do their best. I mean, I'm not talking about anything that anyone else wouldn't say in this arena, but the passion comes from you. You know, that inner spark comes from you. It's not going to come from me. You know, I'd love to be doing what all you're doing out there and having a lot of fun. But now it's up to you to go and find out the fun in what you're doing, because you will then build a high performance team.
Yes, that's it.
I've lost you. You've just muted yourself.
Okay, out of excitement. You have energized me, you have charged me up. So now I want to ask you that what your professional experience says, or what your inner self says. What role does the trainings play in creating high performance team, in gelling them together, especially the campings or fun part of the trainings? How would you rate them?
Well, you mentioned camping. I'm also a scout, or was a scout. I joined the Cub Scouts back in
Okay.
when was it now? 1965, I think, or 66 maybe, the year of England won the World Cup, which is always memorable. And I joined the Cubs not knowing anything about leadership, collaboration, teamwork, etc., etc.
Okay. Okay.
And I was lucky enough to join a movement that really looked at producing the future leaders of the world. So I joined the Cub Scouts, I went to the Scouts, I went to the Venture Scouts, and then I went back and I became a Scout leader. So I actually ran the local Scout troop for a while. I do believe these outbound type courses, I do believe they have a role, but they don't have as much as a role as the people running the outbound courses would like to believe. And let me give you a simple example. When you're in the office and you're working within a team, you're working in a controlled environment which is geared around the project you're working on.
Yes.
If you're now in these beautiful mountains behind you, camping overnight, it's nowhere near the office. It's nothing to do with the office.
Yes.
And of course, everyone is going to have fun. They're going to learn new skills in that particular environment. And this is why they say leadership is contextual. So the context that you're learning new things actually is very much away from where you work.
Yes.
And therefore, for some people, it translates easily, or perhaps in a little difficult way, because they've bridged the gap.
Yes.
And that's the purpose of these outbound courses, and it really does develop some fantastic leaders. However, for the majority of people, they bridge the gap while they're there, but then they go back to the office. And the gap.
And now I want to discuss a very, very practical point with you to know your insights, because you are so wonderful in team building. Here in Pakistan, there are two sort of groups or mindset. One mindset says that during the trainings of team building and high performance team buildings, there has to be seriousness, there has to be very, very focused discussion, there has to be very, very disciplined environment. The other group of trainers and consultants and chief executives and managers say, no, it should be fun around, they should be involved in team activities, they should be doing they're playing childish games. So what is your take on this? Which group is correct or more effective, or there has to be a balance?
Well, they're both right. I mean, it's as simple as that, really. You know, when I had a proper job, as I refer to it, you know, when I was employed by someone else and I traveled around the world first class, going from one high 5-star hotel to another, one airline lounge to another, one very important business arena to another, you know, one limousine to another, we had a lot of fun. Because we learned about each other in a social arena. We also learned about each other in a very professional arena. So how do you build trust? How do you get clarity of message? How do you understand that someone else who is having a bit of a bad day, that's unusual for them? And you only know that when you know what that other person's capable of. And if they're having an amazing day, and you say, whatever you're doing, can you please pass that round? Because you're just fantastic. I've never heard this from
Okay.
you before, and there's a smile to your face already. You see, the thing is, if we praise people, we reward the result, but we praise the effort.
Okay.
And we don't do that, do we? Really? So your chief execs that were saying, no, if they go on a training course, they must do this and they must do this and they must do. I mean, you can feel the fist going in the hand.
Yeah.
It's the authority happening here. And then the other side is, oh, if they go on the training course, let them take their shirts off, let them take their jackets off, let them go swimming in the swimming pool, Well, actually, is that right? I mean, the answer is probably not. I mean, there is a balance you need to have.
That's great. I'm really, really excited to know your answer, because both things are important and there should be a balance. Now, after the training and fun activities, now we come towards the communication. Mostly, I have also observed, mostly expert people like you, they say that due to disruption in communication, vagueness in conveying what to do, high performance teams even either fail or have a low performance. So in your expert career and such a vast experience, how much importance you give to the communication in building high performance teams?
It's fundamental in building any team, whether you're running a family at home, running a small business, or a chief exec running one of the biggest organizations in the world. You need to break down what communication really means. So as I said before, the weather's a construct, communication is a construct. So how do we explain communication? Well, as I say, for the religious arena, God has given us a bit of a steer on this, because we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth.
That's great.
And very simply, we need to listen before we engage this.
Okay.
And
Very good rule.
It's a simple rule. It's not just 2 to 1. Actually, it's 4 to 1, because we see things as well, which then allows us to listen, and then we can speak.
That's great. That's great.
And amazingly, most people of a very senior level don't know how to listen.
Yes.
They've never been taught how to listen. When you're at school, you're told, turn to page 52, we're going to do calculus today. Don't look at the back, because that's where the answers are.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
That's what happened. We're not being told this is going to be really important, because if you listen to what we're doing today, for those of you that want to be engineers, for those of you that want to be anything in the astronautical program, for any of you budding mathematicians out there, this lesson is going to be really important to your future. If you're not going to be any of those, if you're going to be a hairdresser or work in a sales arena, you still do need to know how to add up. So this will help you with your critical thinking. Now, all of a sudden, you've got 30 students in front of you, and they now believe you're going to teach them something in their lesson. Whereas previously, they weren't listening, they weren't engaged, because they don't like math.
Yes, very right. Very pertinent example you have given.
But the thing is, we all go through that. So you don't have to be a chief exec to have gone through that. We've all gone through school. We've all gone through that. Why am I doing this subject? And you're internally communicating with yourself to say, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. And the language you're developing internally will actually develop your altitude.
Yes.
You won't pass. You won't get the grades that you're going to. So communication starts in a very funny place sometimes. There's another thing. Here's an absolute classic for you. If you're writing an email, who's it for? Who's that email for?
It can be for anyone, for any friend, for boss, for manager, for anybody.
Okay, but is it for you?
Indirectly, yes. It's for
Indirectly.
me. Yeah. If it's
Indirectly.
effective, it will pay me. And if it is not, I will be penalized.
But fundamentally, it's for the person
Yeah.
receiving the email.
Hmm.
It's not for you at all, really.
Yeah. Yes.
It's for you to get to a point, but you're communicating to somebody else.
Yeah.
Now, if I were to ask that question to chief execs, you will be amazed at the response I get, because
Hmm.
it won't be in a consequential order. It will be
Okay.
literally ad hoc. And I will say, so
Yes.
tell me, when you're writing an email, who's it for? And they'll say, well, for me.
Yeah.
They'll
Okay.
do that immediately because that's the automatic response. That's
Yeah.
what they believe. And then I have to bring them back to planet Earth and say, well, why are you sending it then? Don't you already know?
Yeah.
So
Very valid
communication,
point.
exactly, it's communication is from you to somebody else or from someone else to you. Any fool
That's
can make
great.
this complicated, really, but let's make it simple. Are you a good communicator? And the answer is, most people will say, yes, I'm a very good communicator. Okay, prove it.
Prove it.
And then they'll say, how do you want me to prove it? I said, well, you've just proven to me that you're not a very good communicator.
That's great. That's great. You trap people very, very articulately, Neville.
Well, the point is, the traps are there for them to fall into. Their level of awareness is not good enough, so they just fall straight in. You know, we can all build lemmings, and they can all jump off the end of the cliff. What we want is leaders. We want people to think and then act. And when their thinking is so good that the action becomes automatic, that's when you know you're good at leadership. So, for instance, when you start to drive a car, it's pretty clunky.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you become unconsciously competent. In other words,
Unconsciously competent.
exactly.
Yes.
And that's what proper leadership is. So you do things automatically out of habit when they're good things. But when you see something that you haven't quite worked out what it is, you stop and you think. And then you work out what that is. And you might be looking at it from an experience point of view, a gut feel, or it may be something completely new, in which case you're having to fill in your own gaps.
Yeah.
And when you fill those gaps in and you start to move along that arena, and it doesn't quite work out, you say, hang on a minute, I need to stop again. I need to go down a different arena. You know, my thinking wasn't quite there. The problem is with leadership and with lots of teams is people start down a route, they have a plan, and they keep going on the plan. And then the
That's
plan doesn't.
wonderfully explained. And now, since we are approaching towards the end of the program, and
Oh,
I
wow.
don't waste a single minute to talk to you, so I want to paint a picture in front of you. We are generally talking about the corporate sector teams in which there are offices and tables and chairs and computers, and people are working in teams. But just I want to think and take you to a journey with me where the high altitude mountaineering teams are being trained, where the submarine teams are being trained, where, like you said, that oil and gas sector, oil refinery teams are being trained, such a sensitive and dangerous tasks, and teams are being trained to perform well. How do they do that? It is the mindset or the skills or what?
It starts with mindset. You know, let's put this even simpler. We're all born with a positive bias in our mind. Everyone is. The neuroscientists and the psychologists have proven it time and time again. And the reason why they really do believe it is with little knowledge, with little experience, with little understanding, without going to university or doing things elsewhere, we learn to walk. So we are all positively biased. And then these organizations that put you into these very difficult arenas work on your mindset immediately, your attitude. So if you imagine, we've all got a brain, that's the computer, and our mindset is the software. Now, we can have a bad mindset and we can have a good mindset.
Yes.
The thing is, only we can learn from either. So if you're failing, a lot of people will say, oh, I'm no good. Other people with a positive bias will say, well, I've learned how not to do it, so I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to do it a different way going forward. So they're either being successful in getting results, or they're learning because they're learning what not to do next time. And it's as simple as that.
Wonderful, Neville. I'm more impressed by you, your expertise, your way of explaining the things. Now, at the end of the program, I would like to have your concluding remarks that how emotional intelligence helps in building high-performing teams, because mostly we misunderstand the concept of emotional intelligence. So there are a lot of difficulties in implementations. Kindly, your concluding remarks, how emotional intelligence works.
Sure. I mean, the first thing I would say is emotional intelligence is something you don't need to be. What you need to be is emotionally competent and resilient. And why I say that? It's quite simple. When I was growing up, all children get called names. And my mum would say, just turn the other cheek. You know, in a religious connotation, that has a huge amount of me. Just turn the other cheek.
The message of Jesus.
Exactly. This is only going to hurt you if you let it in. So it's your emotional competence and resilience that come to play. And as they say, you know, we have a saying: sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but names will never hurt me.
Wow.
Now,
lovely. Please say it again.
Sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but names will never hurt me. Now, the interesting thing is, my wife's listening in the background.
Okay.
And she learnt it slightly differently.
Okay.
Sticks and stones may break my bones. Now it's got real meaning.
Yeah.
But names will never hurt me. So that just shows my memory's going after 61 years, but it's the same sentiment. Don't rise to other people calling names. Don't rise to people shouting at you, you know, because if you shout back, what is the consequence? They will shout louder. Yes. And then you will shout louder and they will shout louder. And that's how wars happen ultimately. So it comes back to listening, you know, and taking the tension out of the situation. We're all brilliant at conflict management. But the problem is we're not very brilliant at handling it at the beginning. We need to learn how to do it. So emotional intelligence, I think, is it's a term really that I don't really like, because what emotion is intelligent? Because I don't know any, you know. Emotions happen as a result of something happening to you, you know. You don't get emotional either really excited or really depressed unless something happens. And those emotions come in like that. They come in immediately before we start to think. And it's being in control, emotionally competent and resilient, you know. If someone on the Islamabad highway cuts in front of you, you know, and I've been party to this as well, you know, when I've hired a car, the first thing I would do is beep, honk the horn, you know, because it's an automatic emotion. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, then I'll say, okay, well, I've given him what everyone else is giving him. I'm just going to get on with it now. Other people will go beep, 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 and then they'll tell their passenger, did you see that person? They do that all the time, you know, and they carry that unintelligent discussion forward. So emotions challenge your thinking, your intelligence, and it's up to you to be emotionally competent and resilient so that it doesn't hurt your day.
Wow, what an ending message. What concluding remarks. Well, let me tell you, you can feel from my expressions and my excitement that I really, really enjoyed the program. And I think our viewers are also jumping on their seats, whoever are watching. So I hope you also enjoyed the session and questions and the whole ambience. What are your feelings if you want to tell us?
No, it's good fun. I mean, as before, I mean, if people don't know your approach, there are no questions sent beforehand. This is just a subject, and we talk about the subject in an honest and experienced type of arena. So hopefully we've shared our experiences with each other. And hopefully that's been of use for other people, because if we can change one person out there, we've done
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we've done our
That's
job.
it. That's it. So I am again grateful to you and really thankful to you. Inshallah, I will invite you after a few days. Also, I will request you to come again and talk about your experiences and give your expert views on another very exciting topic. So please accept my thanks and thank you very much. I'm really really happy that you came today. And with this, we close our today's session. I hope viewers, you must have enjoyed the building of high performance teams. I hope that Pakistani companies learn from this and develop high performing teams so that our economy grows, our country grows. Thank you very much, Neville, once again. Goodbye.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.